Sarah's Stamping Retreat. Today I'm going to be showing you 5 different cards using layering stamps. So the ones that I've chosen for this week is this Garden Delights layering stamp set from Altenew. So this all these stamps create one flower, and these stamps create another flower, and then you've got 2 leaves as well. And then you've got hello, warm hugs, sending love, sending hugs and happy thoughts, and I appreciate your support. So it also comes with this inspiration guide. So it shows you how to layer up all the stamps. So you can see it's got these kind of like blue guides as to where everything is. And all these kind of relate to what's on the stamp set. So this one's A1, and just there you might not be able to pick it up on camera. It says A1 next to this on the stamp set as well. So it's really easy to see which ones are which. Now it's also got some ideas for the cards that you could make using it. So these 3 just use the Garden Delight stamp set, and this one adds it on to a different stamp set called Kind Reminders. So you can see this flowers from this stamp set, and then you've got this other one from the Kind Reminders stamp set. So it's really nice to have those ideas as well, and it also tells you what inks they've used, so that if you wanted to use those inks you could. So I'm going to just pop my project onto this piece of just A4 scrap paper, like copy paper. So I've got an A6 card blanks that measures 8 1/4 inches by 5 7/8 inches, scored and folded in half. And for this card I want to do some stamping and some masking. So I'm going to use all of the stamps, or all of the flower and leaf stamps anyway. So I'm just going to pop that on there. I'm going to be using Altenew inks for this one as well. So I've got my Altenew Jet Black ink, which is a really nice crisp dye ink. So I'm going to stamp that down here. And then I'm also going to stamp it onto a piece of masking sheet. So masking sheet is really good for masking off areas when you don't want to stamp over them. I'm just going to cut out this flower on here. I'm getting really close to these, I'm cutting dead on the lines, because you don't want any outline on these. So I'm going to peel that off the backing. Then I'm going to stamp another one just next to it. And I'm making sure that some of the images go off the side of the card as well, because I always think that looks a little bit better when you're doing like a cluster like this. And then some of you that are eager-eyed might have spied that I've actually got some more masks on the back of here from a different project that I made. So I'm just going to reuse these masks. This is how I store my masks after I've used them. I just pop them on the back of the acetate for the stamp set that I'm using, and then I've got them there ready for the next time. So the rest of the masks I'm just going to reuse off here, so that you don't have to watch me cut them all out. Should be a little bit boring for you. So you can see that even though these have some colour on from last time I used them, then still perfectly good working order, and it saves me having to stamp and cut them again. So then I'm going to move on to this smaller flower. I'm going to stamp one just here, and I'm going to stamp another one down here. And then I'm just going to stamp my sentiments. So I'm going to use this Happy Birthday here. This is from an Altenew stamp set called Birthday Wishes. And it's just got a lot of nice birthday sentiments on it. So I'm just going to stamp that across here. So then I'm going to use my leaf stamps. And actually I'm just going to cover up those flowers first with my masks. You'll see I actually tore a couple of the petals off when I was peeling off the page, but it's fine because I can just put them on separately. It's only a matte, so it doesn't actually matter that it's broken. So I'm just going over with the 2-leaf pieces. So then I'm always going to go back in reverse. So I'm going to do the leaves first and then back through the flowers. And I'm going to do the layering because I've got my layout now and I'm happy with my layout. I'm just going to layer on the colours. So with my leaves, I've got one that's got 2 layers on it and one that's got 3 layers on it other than the outline. I'm actually just going to use 2 colours for each. I'm going to skip out this D3 layer. I'm just going to use the D2 and the D4. So I always refer to this when I'm looking at layering because this is all my Altenew inks and I can use this to kind of decide what kind of colours that I want. So I think I'm going to use the bamboo, the parrot, the olive and the moss. And so I'll use the olive and the moss for some and the parrot and the bamboo for others, just to give it a bit of depth. And I'm always going to start with the lightest colour. So I'll start with the bamboo when I'm using bamboo and parrot, and I'm going to start with the olive when I'm using olive and moss. So I'm going to start with the single leaves. I think I'll do the single ones in the bamboo. So I'm just lining the stamp up over the outline so that it kind of colours in the outline. I'm wanting to press down quite hard so that I can make sure that the ink is going right up to the mask there. So then I'm going to put that one back. So they go in order, so C1, C2, C3. So this is going to be my darker colour. So I'm going to use the parrot for that. And if you're not sure how it lines up, you can just refer to the layering guide. So if you look at the layering guide, this is the one that we're doing. So you've got the outline which we've done, C2 which we've done, and it shows you that C3 lines up just where this yellow line is. So it just lines up right at the bottom of the leaf. So there we go. Actually, it's quite hard to line these up exactly on camera because trying to keep your head out of the shot, because it's actually easier to look right over the stamp. So that's lap leaf done. So then I'm going to switch to the double leaf and I'll do that in the olive and the moss. So I'm going to start with the olive for this solid bit of the image. And these Altenew inks are actually really nice to use. They're kind of just the right amount of ink on them. They're not so juicy that it's kind of messy to stamp, but they've got a nice amount of ink, so you get a nice coverage. Then I'm going to skip D3 and just go to D4, because that's the moss. I just need to line that down here. So then I'm going to peel off these flower masks. And I can store them back on here. So I'm just going to peel off these end two. And I'm probably actually just going to get rid of this one that I ripped. I'll just make a new one next time if I need another one. I think I might go with Pink Pearl Cotton Candy and Pinkalicious. Or maybe actually Pink Pearl Cotton Candy and Pink Diamond for these ones. So I'll start with the Pink Pearl. So actually my Pink Pearl and Cotton Candy I've got in the smaller ones. And I've got a large one of the Pink Diamond. But it doesn't matter how big the ink pads are. You can use whatever size you need. So I'm going to start with the solid stamp. And I'm going to start with that in the Pink Pearl. So again for this one, it's just a case of lining up the base layer with the outline. So some of you might have seen on like social media and stuff that I got accepted for the Altenew Educator program, which I was really excited about. it's actually a program where you take a bunch of classes and then you have to submit a load of projects, and hopefully if you pass all of them, then you can become an Altenew educator, which essentially just means that you're kind of certified to take Altenew classes. So I really wanted to do it to just do something a little bit different. I teach classes anyway. I just thought that it would be fun to do some of the Altenew classes and to get some feedback on my work, and to kind of have that almost like more official title, because even though I take classes and I'm very experienced in taking classes, I don't have any official training in terms of taking classes. So I'm just using the cotton candy for this second layer. So this is actually towards a couple of the layering classes that are on there with layering stamps. So I thought that I would make a video for you guys as well as I go along, and then the projects that I make here will be some of the projects that I submit for the educator program. So I'd love your feedback too. Let me know if you like my projects, which one's your favourite. But actually the classes that this is for is there's a class called All About Layering 1 and All About Layering 2, and they're actually free classes which I'll link below, and they're quite basic classes which just tell you all about how to layer up different stamp sets. So if you're struggling with layering up any of your stamp sets, you've got quite a lot of guidance. Firstly, with the sheet that I showed you that comes in each of the stamp sets, and also if you go over, they've got like 5 I think or 6 all about layering classes. So, and those ones are actually free as well. So let's just use Pink Diamond for the third layer. So you can get a whole load of project inspiration over there, and also video guides as to how to layer different stamp sets. So you can get a really good idea then of how to layer yours if you have a stamp set that you want help with layering up. So that's kind of why I'm not going into too much detail as to how to like technically layer the stamps, because there's actually a lot of guidance when you get these stamp sets, and I'll link the free classes below so that you can go take the classes as well if you want to. I might actually go for this Autumn Blaze in the middle. I think that'd be a fun colour to go in the middle. So there's actually 2 bits to the centre of the flower, but I'm only going to use this one. And that's the thing, you can pick and choose with these which layers you use. For me, this one's so tiny anyway that I don't feel I need like an extra layer of colour. And then finally, I'm just going to peel back the final masks. So then I've just got these 2 to fill in now. So there are 4 more colourful layers to this one. And then I'm just going to do this one in black because I think that kind of looks better in black. So I want to use the deeper pinks for this one. So I think I'll probably do 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm just lining them up like this on my thing so that I don't forget which order I want to do them in. So I'm going to go with A2 next, because A1 was the outline. So this solid stamp is A2. And I just think this is a really nice way of colouring your stamps and getting some shading without having to do anything technical with like markers or anything like that if you're not really that into colouring. And what I've just realised as I've just done that is that I should have left the mask on this one, because I need to do the other one first because it layers over this one. So it doesn't matter, I've not ruined anything, because I could have actually just layered this one up first and then put it back on. But I'm just going to do the whole of the other flower and then take that back off and do that flower, so that I don't ruin my layering. And I find it easier to find like a distinctive shape of one of the petals, and that really helps you to kind of find your bearings as to where you want to stamp. So for me, this one is quite distinctive here because it's quite flat at the end. So then if I can find that one, then I can line everything else up, no problem. So I'm going to go in with the Pinkalicious now. And then I'm going to do the next layer in Rubelite. And then I'm going to do the centerpiece in the black. And then I'm going to do this last bit in the very dark raspberry. And then I'll just layer up this final one. So I'm going to use the exact same steps I just used for the last one. So you probably have noticed that just here I've somehow caught a bit of ink onto the paper. So rather than give up on my project, all I'm going to do is just add on, these are really old enamel dots from Stampin' Up. I'm just going to just add a few on there. So I always think if you mess up, just try and think of a way to save it rather than throwing it out or starting again. No, I think that's quite cute with those enamel dots, isn't it? So then that's that card completed. So then for this next card, we're going to do more layering, but I'm going to do layering with a coloured outline as opposed to a black outline, so you can see the difference when you use colours instead. I'm going to start by stamping this Birthday Wishes in black. And the thing I like to do with photopolymer stamps, if you've got a sentiment, is just to line them up on grid lines first and then pop this on. Because photopolymer stamps can go a bit wavy and I wanted to make sure I've got a nice straight sentiment. So the reason I'm stamping this first as well is because if I mess this up after I've done all the stamping, then I've messed up the whole card. Whereas if I mess it up now, then I can just start again with a new card. So I'm going to use the larger of the two flowers for this, and I'm going to stamp them twice. So I'm going to use the colours that we used for the last one. So I'm going to use the raspberry for the outline. I'm actually going to stamp it over the Birthday Wishes a bit, and then I'm also going to stamp it on here as well. And then I'm going to work my way through the layers again. So now I'm going to go from the lightest, so I'm going to go Cotton Candy first. And then next I'm going to go Pink Diamond. And then I'm going to go Pinkalicious. And I think I'm going to use the jet black for this central piece. And then I'm going to use Rubelite for the final layer. So then I'm going to go die cut this out. I've got these Coordinating Garden Delights die set. So there's just 4 dies and it just cuts out the 4 pieces in the set. So you can see that just fits perfectly around there. Just going to tape it down. And I'm just going to go run that through my Big Shot. So now I've got my 2 flowers, one that's die cut and one that's on the card. And then I want to stamp some leaves as well. So I'm going to pop a mask, and I'm just using one of the masks that we used for the last card. I'm just going to pop that one here. And so for this I'm going to use the moss as the outline. And I'm going to stamp a couple on here as well. And then we're going to use the parrot for the next layer. And then I'm going to go in with the olive. I'm just using them in the exact same way as I was for the last card. So I'm just following the layering that's on here. So this is C1, then C2, then C3. So then let's take this off. And then I'm just going to die cut these with the coordinating die. And then I think I actually want a couple of extra leaves, so I'm going to have one up here and one down there. So I'm going to just stamp a couple more. And I actually made a little bit of a mistake on this one. I put on olive where I meant to put on parrot. So I'm just going to make these two a little bit darker, and I'm going to use the moss for this extra layer. So then I quite like that layout, so I'm just going to glue these under the flower. So then I'm going to use some of these enamel dots from Carta. I'm going to use the black ones just to pick up some of the black that I've used in the card. I'm just going to dot a couple about. And I think I actually struggle with clean and simple cards a little bit. I always think they need more, but I don't want to keep on layering more and more and more things on, so I'm going to leave it there. And I've just realised when I just nudged that I haven't actually glued this down yet, so I'm just going to pop some dimensionals underneath that. So now we've got this card with a bit of dimension. And I really like the colours on that as well. My next card, I've got a 5x5 inch white card blank, and this is 4.5 inches square. So then I've got olive, bamboo, moss and parrot inks. So I'm going to use moss as the outline, and I'm going to stamp leaves all across this background. So I'm going to come in with the next layer of this leaf, and I'm going to use the bamboo for this. And then I'm going to do the same with the other solid leaf shape. So I'm going to take the next layer, and for this one I'm going to use the parrot ink. And the next layer of the set of 2 leaves as well. And then the stamp with the 2 leaves on has another layer as well, which I'm going to do in olive. So now we've got this really pretty background, and I'm going to be using blues, these blues for the flowers. So I'm just going to edge this layer in this sapphire ink just to bring the blue into here. So I'm literally just going to run it round. And now if I put that against another piece of white cardstock, you'll be able to see it's got this blue edge to it. So it just frames it nicely. So then on here I want to create a couple more leaves. So I'm going to do the leaves in the same colours I've just used. And then I'm also going to use the larger flower. So I'm going to do the outline in the sapphire. I'm going to do the solid layer in the Arctic. Then the next one, so this is layer A3. I'm doing this Caribbean sky. And next layer A4 is going to be in the Parisian blue. And then I'm going to go back to the sapphire for this next layer. And then I think I'm going to use this bright orange cream colour for this last layer. It gives a nice little pop of colour to the centre of the flower. So I'm just going to go die cut those out. So I decided I needed another layer just to lift the flower from the leaves. So I'm actually going to line this in the sapphire ink as well. Then I'm going to use this happy birthday sentiment from the birthday greeting stamp set that we've been using. And I'm just going to stamp that on this scrap piece of white. And I'm going to stamp it twice because I want to use the happy and the birthday separately. So if I stamp it twice, then I can use that whole gap to cut around the birthday and the whole gap to cut around the happy, rather than just using half, which is quite close. So then I'm going to grab my glue and I'm going to pop my layers together. I'm going to add some fine pads behind the flower. I'm going to add that to this square. And then I'm going to add some fine pads behind the square. So then I'm going to actually try just heat embossing this sentiment on this piece of Bazzill's cardstock. See, that is the, it's like a textured side to the card. I'm going to do it on the smooth side. And I'm going to use the pure white embossing powder from Altenew. So let's just heat that up. So I was just seeing whether I thought that the happy birthday looked better like that. And I actually think I do. I prefer this to the blue stamped happy birthday. So I'm just going to pop this at the end there. I'm going to cut another one in half. So then I'm just going to put a little dash of glue at that end. And I'm going to do the same with the birthday. So I ended up not using these die cut leaves, but I can save those to use on something else. Now I'll use that happy birthday sentiment another time as well. So there's that card completed. Then for this next card, I've got an A6 card blank. So that measures 8 1/4 inches by 5 7/8, and that's scored and folded in half. And then I've got this piece of the same blue Bazzill cardstock that we used in the last card, and I've cut it 1/4 inch smaller than the width of my card and the same height. And I've just cut, using the outline dies, some shapes out of the cardstock. So then I'm going to take my stamps and I'm going to do the flowers in fire brick ink. I've used a lot of different colours of ink in this tutorial, but obviously you don't need to have them all, just work with what you've got. You can always change the colours and things to suit what you've got at home. So then I'm just going to stamp through each of these holes. You have to excuse me if my head gets in the way of it, because it's hard to see without putting my head over. And let's take the other flower as well. And then I'm going to take the moss ink that we've been using a lot and the leaf outlines and stamp the leaves through. So then I can take this away and I'm going to fill in the flowers. So let's start with this large one. And I'm going to start with the sun-kissed. When you've just got these small pads, you just want to pat them on. It's easier to take the ink pad to the stamp rather than the other way around. And then for the next layer, I'm going to use the pink pearl. And then I'm going to go orange cream. And then I'm going to bring in the fire brick again for this next one. Now I think I might go with the sapphire that we were using for the last card for the final layer. So I really like those oranges and blues together. And let's continue on with the smaller flowers. So with these ones I think I might start a shade lighter and go in with the citrus burst first. So then I'll use Sunkissed for the next layer. And then I'll go Pink Pearl for the next layer. Then I'm going to go with Sapphire Blue for the centre. So then I've got the leaves and I'm going to go with the Bamboo, Parrot and Olive colours again. So then I'm going to pop this layer on with some dimensionals. And I'm just going to heat emboss this Happy Birthday on a spare piece of cardstock. So let's just heat that up. And then I'm going to cut that off. That was the pure white Altenew embossing powder that I used, by the way. And it is a lovely embossing powder, really fine. But again, as long as you've got a fine white embossing powder, just go ahead and use that. Like, there's so many different brands with so many different embossing powders. And if you're looking for a white one, I think this one's a lovely one because it's really quite a bright white, as opposed to some of them are a bit cream, and it's nice and fine. So you do get a nice result with this, but if you're happy with what you've got, then just go ahead and use that. So I'm going to pop some little dimensional pieces under here. And I'm just being careful about where I put them, because some of the sentiment is kind of over this bit that's like more of a gap. So I'm just trying to make sure that it's stuck to pieces that are blue, just so it stays nice and level. So there's that. So for my next card, I'm going to stamp the largest of the flowers just onto a spare piece of white cardstock. I'm going to speed through it because you've seen me ink up these stamps a lot of times now, so I'm sure you're really familiar with the layering. I just wanted to let you know that the colours that I'm using are the Raspberry for the darkest bits, and then I'm going to be starting from the Pink Diamond. I'm going through the Pinkalicious and the Rubelite and back to the Raspberry again. And I think I'm going to use the Citrus Burst for the centre bits. So I'm just going to go die cut that out. I've got a 5x5 inch white card blank, and I'm going to stamp this flower straight onto the card and use the same set of colours. So that'll go there, and then this one will go over the top. And I want to stamp some leaves as well. So I'm going to use one of the masks that I created just to mask off that flower while I stamp the leaves. You can see this mask on its last legs and it's peeling up a bit, but I'm going to use it for this time and then I'll check it out. So I'm going to go with this moss first. I'm going to stamp one of those down here as well. And then I'm going to stamp a few of the single leaves. And I'm just going to mask everything over. So then I'm going to take some of my broken china distress oxide ink. And I'm just going to rub some on with my blending brush. And I'm going darker in the middle, and then as I get out to the outside, I'm just going lighter and lighter. So every time I re-ink, I'm just going to go over that middle bit so that then I can get to the lighter bit that I want around the outside. So then I'm just going to take off all my masks. So then I'm going to pop this up on some dimensionals. And then I'm just going to use this kind of scripty happy birthday sentiment and my raspberry ink. And then I'm just going to stamp that on here. And I'm going to cut around that. Then I'm just going to pop some dimensionals behind it. And that is my final card finished. I'm really pleased with that. So let's bring in the other cards. So that's all of my cards finished for today. I'm really pleased with how they turned out. I hope you like them. If you do, I'd really appreciate you clicking like below. And you can also press subscribe if you'd like to see future videos. If you press the bell button and select all, then YouTube will also notify you when I've got a new video available. All of the products that I've used today are listed in the description below, and you can click through the links if you'd like to purchase any of the products. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon.